Hello, welcome to another episode of Fight on Montana podcast, where we take a deep dive into everything Grizzly athletics. I'd like to remind the listener to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts out. That's really, really, really important to us. Also, you can find our podcast pretty much everywhere you get your podcasts at. So, Angel, how are you, man?
Oh, man, I can't complain. What's up, Adam? Adam, you got to tell me right now, what's new?
A dog that's like a kid, dude. Like, seriously. Like, it is an 12 week dog. It's messing up my sleeping pattern, man. It's rough. It's rough. I have two kids, and it wasn't this rough. And you can't like rock it to sleep because that would just be weird. But it is a little high maintenance dog, and she's like right at my feet right now, probably like looking at me like, what's going on? What's up with you, man?
Oh, nothing much, man. You know, just same thing. Just taking care of me and my pup. Just trying to get after it, and excited to talk some Griz athletics.
Yeah, and hey, we have some breaking news this week that came out, I believe, Monday. Coach Hauk said that Coach Cox was leaving the program. We don't know any of the details, so we don't want to go into any of the details of where he's going, why he's leaving, because we just don't know, and we don't want to say anything that could be wrong. We want to try to have a good podcast that's truthful for the listeners. So that's happening, man. Also on this episode, guys, just wanted to let you know, we're going to recap the tournament, the Big Sky men's tournament. We're going to go into some of the different aspects of men's basketball and throughout the year, kind of go over what we see for next year, maybe do a little kind of like what we need in recruiting. And that's what we're planning on this episode. We have some great episodes. Like we mentioned earlier, Angel, we have some great episodes coming up. So.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. No, kind of talking about kind of getting into the tournament this past weekend. I just kind of want to know your opinions, Adam. Just off the top, what were some of the things that really kind of stood out to you?
Well, it was an up and down tournament. We went into it playing Idaho, and we had a big lead. Kind of like the story of the year. We kind of lost a lead and came away with, I believe, a 5 or a 6 point win. We moved on to the quarterfinals to meet Weber State. We were not favored in that one. The money was definitely on Weber State. We come and play probably our best game, I would think, either, other than the Washington game earlier in the year. And we beat them pretty soundly. But again, that two-headed monster, man, that has been biting us all year. We have a big lead and it slowly gets depleted. There's a lot of things that can be adhered to that. Youth, we have a lot of youth. This is the first Big Sky tournament that all these guys have been playing. The only one that has had experience is Mac Anderson. And so a lot of this was new to everybody. So, it was up and down going into that Eastern Washington game. It was going to have to be a perfect game for us to win that game. Obviously, it was not a perfect game. Obviously, we came out very rusty. The legs were not there. The legs were a little sore. Playing your third game in 3 days, your legs are going to be a little sore. A lot of the shots were short, and Eastern Washington came out hot, and we were down. We were down 44-15 at half, and we got beat by 28 points. So
just kind of going back to it, man, just from a player perspective, I was thinking, I kind of like to compare these stories and situations back to when I first started playing. And I was, fortunate enough to start, my redshirt freshman year, which is an awesome opportunity. But man, let me tell you, like how you just mentioned, those legs were a little sore. I definitely understand that because I was going through the same thing, late in the season, my earlier kind of seasons. It wasn't until my junior and senior season that I got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm a little bit used to it. I'm not as fatigued. And especially, the coaching, the training, that played a big role into it, kind of changing from, a kind of attitude to a Hawk attitude. You know, they're great coaches in their own way, but their philosophies are very, very different when it comes to actually coaching kids. And so because of that, you know, it put me in a position to be able to survive, but it came with experience. And so I can only imagine how they felt, you know, especially having all that pressure from last year, you know, having such a good year last year, you know, potentially being in the same position to take it and then head to March Madness. What was it, the third, fourth year in a row?
Yeah,
you know, that we made it last year.
Last year, if we would have had the tournament, that would have been 3 years in a row.
3P, man, yeah. And so, I mean, going from that into not having it, and then trying to live up to those expectations and that pressure with such a young team, it's a lot to handle. It's a lot to handle because at the end of the day, you know, they're a bunch of kids. I was a kid, you know, playing out there with some grown men. You know, that so it got to a point where, you know, sometimes you just need that experience. But let me tell you, man, I'm proud of the grit. You know, you saw flashes of brilliance. You know, going into it, I think everybody had the you know, kind of the perspective. Okay, well, you know, we'll get that first round, but I don't know how much more than that. You know, and you, like you just said, they played some of their best ball that second round, that quarterfinal round against Weber, and so it was absolutely incredible to see. And the Lays got a little tired toward the end, that third game, but at the same time, man, I think it just gave us a glimpse and some flashes of brilliance of what this team could do for future, you know, kind of future and for years to come.
Yeah, one thing that, you know, probably hasn't been talked about is, you know, the Griz were coming in, you know, having won 4 previous matchups with Eastern Washington. They have played them twice in the Big Sky Tournament Championship, where they eliminated them and they got to go to the dance because they won that game. So, you know, there was probably a little Eastern Washington kind of, let's get even, let's get a little bit a revenge. And, you know, with how being so young, you can't teach that. You can't teach, hey, these guys are going to be after your neck because we beat them 4 previous. We know that they're going to want to get a little bit of revenge because we beat them 2 years in a row to go to March Madness. And they came out like they wanted to show they were worth it. And they've had our number, man. We played them 3 times and we've lost 3 times. And, you know, the first two were kind of weird because just with the schedule, because we went there to Cheney, lost by 14, which it was not even close to than the actual score. And then 2 days later, we went back to Missoula, played, and it was the same exact ending score, 90-76, lost by 14. So, you know, the fan in me wish it was a little bit closer so you could have saw some improvement, but you have to look at playing three games in 3 days. And Eastern Washington did not play as well in their previous game against, I believe it was Northern Colorado. So I believe they were probably kind of wanting a little revenge and to prove that, hey, this isn't really us. But, you know, it was a matchup. The matchup gave us problems all year. The matchup was not good. You know, they have some big guys. Tanner Groves is a monster in there. And it's really hard because, you know, he's like 6'10", 240, 235, something like that. And he can shoot from outside. And he's a rebound. He just eats the rebounds as well. So, you know, we don't have a dominant big guy. We have a lot of big guys that are good, but they are more a cerebral, like post 4 that can kind of go outside. You know, Kyle Owens, I love the guy. He would rather have the ball and kind of dribble around and kind of go one-on-one. Same with Josh Bannon. You know, Carter Hollinger is an undersized power forward. He's been battling injury all year. And then Mac Anderson, you know, he's a bigger guy, but he does not have the weight like Tanner Groves does. So it was a matchup issue. I wish we would have had, and this is the fan. I wish we were placed upper in the bracket so that we could have played, you know, Southern Utah. I think we match up a whole lot better with Southern Utah than we do with Eastern Washington. And so I would have liked to have seen that, but in the end, we would have probably had to face, you know, Montana State, Man,
Eastern
that's
Washington,
no matter
about
what.
that for a second, man. A brawl the wild right there. Jesus, that you know how fun that would have been.
Oh man, I was hoping.
Oh my gosh, you know, my Twitter feed, my Instagram feed was just blowing up, you know, from different news outlets talking about, hey, potentially part 2, you know, and another Brawl of the Wild. Like imagine that, you know, kind of underdogs in a sense going to, you know, the ship like that and, you know, making a run for it, you know. I think that was a super cool opportunity or potential opportunity, man. And like you said, the matchup might have not been the greatest, but I'm going to keep going back to it, man. And you saw flashes of brilliance that really put into perspective, okay, there's potential here. There's always potential. And I'd like to think how you were mentioning, you know, Eastern, you know, came in with a vengeance. I'd like to say everybody comes in with a little bit of vengeance. Everybody comes in when they come to play Montana with a little bit of jealousy. You know, I can just personally testing from a little bit of my playing experience. I know teams were different. We played different teams when they played us, as opposed to, you know, when UC Davis went up the street, you know, to go play Cal Poly. You know, it was a different environment. It's a different, you know, kind of attitude and a different mindset when people come to play us. You know, and I think because of that, we're going to get our best shot every single time. And so that's where that consistently showing up, you know, has to really kind of be a point of emphasis when it comes to the training. You know what? And like I said, I think they showed up, you know, early on. They got to a point where they were just a little tired, you know, and that just comes with experience. And so once we get a little bit more experience, we put ourselves in a position to be a little bit more, you know, stronger, faster, athletic, maybe getting off to a better, or not necessarily a better start, but keeping that kind of run kind of going, being able to close out games, learning how to close out of games. You know, that's a huge step in training in general. Learning how everybody can start off good because they're fresh, but closing the games, that's where it's really tough. You know, I used to wrestle in high school, and I just think about some of the situations where I was gassed, I was losing breath, and I was like, okay, how am I going to finish it? You know, it took me a couple of years to get to a point to finish. So I think that's kind of a big missing piece, just learning how to finish. And I think that's an emphasis, not even in just basketball, but in all sports in general.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, people are going to probably laugh at this, but you know, Duke. I can't stand Duke, but Montana in the Big Sky Conference is kind of like Duke, where you're going to get everybody's best shot in football and in basketball because of a legacy that Montana has in football and basketball. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree that that is a real issue. And with young guys, you really can't teach that. You really can't say, hey guys, you're going to get you the best shot of this team. You can say it, but unless your players actually, hey, wow. It's not really going to sink in until that actually happens. And also, you know, this is a question to you, Angel, because I know you played football for the Griz. Now, would you say is basketball different in the aspect where basketball, you know, they play more games, probably twice as much, as many games. Do you feel like a freshman in basketball is not the same as a freshman in football, because they are expected halfway into the season to be at a better place than a football player would be? They're not expected to be by the end of that season. They're not expected to be a freshman anymore. And I've heard all the, you know, Tom Izzo and Coach K, and, you know, these guys, they're freshmen, but they, you know, this is the time where they're not going to be playing like freshmen because you've got to have that growth. What do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, there's kind of differentiating ideas when it comes to that. You know, it kind of really depends on the actual need of the team. You know, sometimes you get put in positions where you don't necessarily need the freshmen and you need to rely to them as heavily, you know, and it's been like that, you know, previous years with, you know, football and basketball. You know, it just happened to be that this year they relied on the freshmen a little more. So that comes with a little bit of pressure, you know, but it's two different worlds that we're talking about here. You know, you think about, you know, a freshman collegiate basketball player as compared to a football player, you know, they're built different. They're, you know, the philosophies are different, you know. I mean, obviously at the end of the day, it's win, you know, but there's a lot that goes into it. You know, every coach is different in their styles. You know, the assistant coaches, you know, they have certain tendencies that maybe football coaches don't have, you know. So it's kind of hard to answer that question just because it's so particular, you know, to each situation. In this situation, I just think it was simply a matter of, hey, you know what? That growth is expected regardless on both ends of the spectrum, football and basketball. There's that pressure to get better, and you have to come out and contribute and show that you're, an asset to the team. That's part of the responsibility. That's part of the pressure of being a student athlete. Especially at the D1 level. So I think that kind of perspective, there's always that pressure, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you're a freshman still. We can push you. We're going to expect the most out of you just because we expect that from everybody. Not necessarily you're a special exception. It just happened to be maybe a little bit more of an unfortunate situation where you had to play a bigger role early on, As opposed to me, kind of thinking back on mine, we had talented guys, a talented senior group. My freshman year was potentially, one of the better offensive line units that we've seen in a long, long time, with Mike Ralston, Cooper Sprung, all those guys, David Reese, Devin Dietrich, those guys, it just happened to be, I just got the opportunity of a lifetime to play, over a couple seniors, and those seniors could have easily, kind of cried about it and boo-hoo, but they took me under the wings. Kind of put me in that situation. It put me in a position to be like, okay, I want to be a leader. I want to grow too. How can I grow? And I think putting these guys in that situation is going to put them in a place where they want to be a leader. They want to show the young guys how to do it at an earlier age, to be more successful sooner, to get an opportunity of a lifetime to potentially play at the NBA level. Who knows? Yeah. So I think that perspective is just kind of important to keep when thinking about these situations. I think it's based on the situation.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from with that. Just also, going into that game, Eastern Washington shot 43% from three,
right?
Lights out. They 56% from field goal range. They out rebounded us by 15. We shot 21%. So it's hard to win a game at all if you're shooting like that and they're shooting like that. So, and also one thing that I kind of saw is the matchup was not there. It just seemed like Eastern Washington was bigger, faster, and stronger. Not necessarily is that the truth, but it just looked like that. I am really proud of the Griz team on how, they were down by 28 points, 30 points. They could have easily thrown in the towel. Easily. Like, how demoralizing that is to be. I know how that feels because I played basketball, and it is demoralizing, and especially having that being aired on Pluto in a tournament game, a Big Sky tournament game. They could have just folded up shop, and that kind of makes me happy, and makes me excited for next year, is because they've got something on their shoulder now. They've got a bad taste in their mouth. And so one thing that we'll get into later, something that I worry about that we'll get into later, just about some things that we'll see for next year with the transfer portal that we are seeing now. We'll get into that later. But I wanted to kind of talk about the roadblock. Like, this year, and you can say that Eastern Washington is a roadblock, but if you go through the series, the series is 15-10 in the favor of Montana. Okay. We've had times where we've beaten them all throughout the year, both times, and gone to and beaten them in the Big Sky tournament. So this year they were a roadblock. They beat us 3 times. Are they a roadblock to us? No. Are they a team that I look to and say, hey, what do we have to do to get better? Yeah, because they're not going to be losing that many guys next year. And so, we're going to be looking at them and saying, okay, what do we need to do to get better? What do we need to change because they're going to play Kansas this, I think it's Saturday, which I have them beating Kansas. Just want to know. I have them beating Kansas because I just think Kansas, the blue blood, is going to go down. I heard, and this is kind of way into it, I don't know if it's true. Kansas had not even watched film on Eastern Washington until I believe like Wednesday. Isn't that ridiculous? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
why is that? Do you know why that is?
I don't know. I saw that on Twitter and I'm like, No, that can't be true.
That's
And
the
it was
tough
like
part. You can't believe everything you see on social media, man. I don't
no,
know.
but it was a video of a player
Oh, really?
saying it. Yeah, it wasn't written. It was like a video of a player saying, "Yeah, we don't really know too much. We haven't watched film on Eastern Washington." And I'm just sitting there like, what? When Selection Sunday happens, you've got IT guys going and putting in together film and sending it to you. I'm pretty sure that coaches are sending it out to your iPad or whatever you have to break down film.
Man,
I just thought that was
Adam,
crazy.
you can't tell me that just doesn't get you going. You know, the lack of respect.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious! Think about that. You know, if a player that I was playing against is something like that, you know, when I was playing football, you know how riled up the team would get in general.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that kind of gets me ready to run through a wall, put on the pads again. You know, sneak in and pretend I'm a freshman or something. I don't know, but goodness gracious, I don't know.
Bill
And I
Self.
think.
Right, go ahead.
I think time and time again, you see that lack of respect at the Big Sky level, and that's why you see those upsets happening.
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and not even at the Big Sky level, but just this D1 AA level. You know, you see the lack of respect. You know, like, hey, we'll just kind of take them. It's an easy win, or it's a lighter. You know, it's one of those things that they feel like they got in the bag, and because of that, it just puts them in a position. And like you never know what's going to happen, and that's what's so awesome about the world of sports. You don't know what next going to happen the next play. You don't know what type of miracles. You've seen time and time again, highlights on YouTube, you know, from teams that came back from behind the win, kind of miracle wins, you know, and they get I would hate to be the team on the losing side that gets 1 million+ views because I didn't take my opponent seriously enough, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just
Bill Self kind of reiterated, you know, it's gonna be hard to stop them. You know, they've got a lot of guys that are weapons and stuff. But man, once it's out there, like you can't get that back. Like that's and overall, like I think the selection committee and the NCAA has a thing against the Big Sky because you look at Montana. Well, 2 years in a row, we got placed with Michigan. 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. That is unheard of playing the same person 2 years in a row.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's constantly a 14 or a 15 seed. No, not better than that. And if you look at Eastern Washington, even if you look at throw in Montana, we play the best. You know, Montana played Arizona. They played USC. They played Georgia. USC's in the tournament this year. I believe I think it was like it was a closer game. I thought it was like 12 or 18 points that we held with USC. So, you know, Eastern Washington, they played Washington State. They played Arizona. They played Oregon. All those teams that, you know, that they're big teams, and you're still not getting respect. And I hope it bites them in the butt. I hope it bites them in the butt.
I hope so too, man. I hope so too. And I think you bring about a good point. You know, I don't say much, but, you know, but go Eagles this weekend. Or is
exactly.
No, not this weekend.
No, it's Saturday. It is Saturday. Yep.
Yeah, this weekend. Yeah. Goodness gracious. Lose track of time these days, you know?
So, you know, before we went on that tangent, you know, I just wanted to ask you, Angel, what do you think? Do you think that, you know, a roadblock is Eastern Washington for us, or is it, you know, just this year they just had our number, you know, and it kind of fluctuates with year to year?
I think necessarily when it comes to, you know, just the sports programs and all athletics of everything Griz, I think we are our number one competitor. You know, I think looking at the talent that we have, you know, the opportunities that come our way from, you know, all kind of standpoints of, you know, athletic kind of avenues, I think we are our greatest roadblock, you know, and I think, you know, we beat ourselves this year, you know, just like I've been part of years where I know it wasn't necessarily anything crazy special that they did. It was just, hey, you know what, we didn't come prepared enough. Our mental focus wasn't there, or, you know what, we didn't practice the right way. You know, we didn't approach it the right way. We didn't think about it in certain terms, you know, because of those types of things before in the past. You know, when I was early on in my career, it was one of those things. It was like, okay, I'm my biggest roadblock. And it took me a couple of years to figure that out. And I think these guys are in that process to kind of realize that eventually, be like, hey, you know what? We beat ourselves. We put ourselves in this position. What can we do? Do we need to hit the gym more? Do we need to run more? You know, do we need to put some gas in it? what can we do to kind of put ourselves in a situation? Because I know just as student athletes in general, we're so hard on ourselves, and there's a reason for that, because we want to achieve, for X, Y, and Z reasons, our sole purpose going to university is to be a student, but it's also opportunity, because a lot of student athletes, they're not students because they're athletes, or they're students because they're athletes. That's what I meant to say. And so because of that, it's just one of those things. It's like, I think we are our biggest roadblock. I think it's always fun. Always fun to have that competition. It adds a little flair, adds a little kind of spice to the mix. But at the end of the day, just one of those things. It's like we are our biggest critic, and we put ourselves in a situation to, kind of overcome it. So kind of going back to it, I know I keep kind of beating it, but it's like I'm excited to kind of see where they kind of go. Following this past week's loss.
Yeah, so let's get into this, because we have some comments from some viewers too. So we'll go into those at the end, but let's go into what do we see for next year? Jack Marshall, beat reporter for I believe the Cayman, he said, hey, what do you guys see for a leader or a threat for sorry, Jack. What do you think of Robbie Beasley III's potential? And so this year, one of the things that we were lacking was a go-to guy. We lose Sade Pridgett, his senior year, he's gone. We didn't have a guy that was our assassin. We didn't have a guy that was like, okay, when we're down, 5 points, who's going to have the ball in their hand?
Exactly.
Who's going to have it? Later on, that Weber State game, holy buckets. Robbie Beasley basically took that game over, and I saw it briefly throughout the year that he's able to do that. I believe it was I want to say either Portland State. I want to say that the game tying shot, they send it to overtime. He has the potential to be a number one guy. I also think Brandon Whitney, he has potential to be a number one guy as well. What do you think? What do you see for next year, Angel?
Well, like you said, kind of going back to Robbie B. I mean, thinking about where he came from, from school in high school. I think it was Dublin High School. And just thinking about his kind of career there. I mean, you kind of look into it, and I think they ran, an 80 and kind of 15 season or something like that. So a very successful season. So kind of transitioning from that high school place to collegiate place, what it's like to win, and obviously there's a competitive nature to it. And so it's like potential to grow, and the fact that he's a freshman and that he saw some playing time, it's only going to put him in a position where he's going to have to, maybe mature a little quicker, but it's going to put him in a position to really kind of dominate for those years to come, and I think because he came from the culture of winning, like a lot of these guys have before in the past, that they were the studs on the team. They know what it's like to win, and they're competitive, and just in their nature, it's going to put them in a position for all to really kind of see that growth as a player, as a young man, and put them in a position to say, okay, we don't like this feeling. We know what it's like to win, and we know what it's like to lose. And I'm sure 10 out of 10 times they much rather win. And so it's like, but I think in these instances, you got to lose a little bit to win.
Exactly.
I think that's that's what they're kind of going through. They're losing a little bit to really kind of put themselves in a position to say, hey, you know what? Never again. There was time and time again where I can't say that obviously I ended my career on the loss, to Weber State, as a football player. But I remember every single game that I lost, I was like, never again, never again. It's just a mentality thing. It's a competitive nature of you. There's, you gotta you take it on the chin just like anything else, but then you put yourself in a position to bounce back 10 times harder. And so that potential is there. The potential is there for all those guys. The minutes that they played. I think Robbie only came away with a handful of points. This past week. But like you said, there's been situations where it's like, okay, he's going to be able to do something down the road.
Yeah, and I just don't know. You can say, hey, it's your time to go score. But to actually do that is one thing. And so I think over this break, I think he'll, this summer break and stuff like that, I think he'll get even better. This year was just it was so weird, hearing some of the things that, these freshmen don't even know what Missoula looks like. I've heard that they haven't been able to get out. They've been basically quarantined to their, their area where they're living. And so I think Robbie Beasley and Brandon Whitney were asked, like, hey, what is your favorite thing about Missoula? And they're like, we don't know. Like, so that kind of is alarming because they don't know Missoula. All they know is, hey, I've got basketball. That's it. So this year, not having a senior this year that actually knew the program, because Michael Stedman, he was a senior, but he didn't play. This was his first year playing in the system. Last year, losing three seniors with Saeed Pridgett and Kendall Manuel. That's hard to do and reload and expect to be number one or number two. And if you look at Travis Dukier, he kind of has those cycles. I remember when he had Ahmad Rory and Michael Guigné, that was like an awesome team. And then when they left, he got in some players where, he had to develop them a little bit, and it took a couple years. And so what I would like to see a little bit more development of those younger guys so that there's not such a layoff. But that's just me being a fan. I think that'll happen. I just think that this year was so crazy, and what was expected of these guys. I hope that they're taking care of themselves because, with depression and it's real, and, only having, your basketball friends and having just basketball, not being able to get out, it's something real. And so I see a lot of good parts. We have a lot of good parts. I'm just wanting to see how are we going to put those parts together? Because you never really saw, Kyle Owens, phenomenal player, athlete, slasher, big guy, shoot the ball really well. He had games where he was, leading scorer, rebounding, really well. And then he had times where nothing. Derek Carter Hollinger, which I think is the ultimate glue guy. He had injuries all year. We really missed him. And Brandon Whitney, he was a freshman, but he had, probably for a freshman, a pretty consistent freshman year. And then Robbie Beasley as well. But, we had a lot of turmoil, a lot of, things happened during the year. Cameron Satterwhite left the program in the middle of the year. I believe, I can't remember his name. He's from Australia. He left the program, the first month or so. Michael Stedman left the program, middle of February. And you really usually don't see that happen. And so, and I actually saw a lot of the guys kind of gel more when Michael Stedman left. I'm not saying anything. Michael Stedman's a great player, but I felt like they gelled a little bit. I felt like that kind of opened up Josh Bannon to kind of have more fluidness to his game and kind of do some more things. It also, left it open for more spreading out. And, the team was more driving a lot more. There's a lot of good pieces. What are you going to do with those pieces? You're going to have to bring those pieces together. There is a hole. We do need a big guy. We do need a big guy big time. And it doesn't need to be a scoring big guy. We just need a big guy in there so we can guard other conferences, bigger guys. Exactly. Weber State's gonna they had some huge guys. They're gonna have big guys. Eastern Washington is gonna have big guys. Northern Colorado, they've got some big guys, but not as much as they usually do. Yeah. So we're going to need a bigger guy. I don't know where that's going to come from. It's probably not going to come from recruiting, so probably a transfer portal. So that will be interesting to see what happens with that as well. Yep. So what do you see? I was going off on a tangent, Angel. So what do you see for next year? What do you think?
I mean, I think the big theme right now that it keeps crossing my mind, and and I think this is something that could be applicable to every athlete. One of the things that I did not take seriously enough early on in my career is understanding that I'm in charge of my success as a player, that I'm in charge of my health. and I'm in charge of what I put into my body when it comes to the way that I eat. If I was going out at the time, if I was, put myself in a position where it was like, hey, you know what, you probably shouldn't be doing this. This may be a time where you should be resting. So I think, and this is something that every athlete on here, if we have, a younger audience that listens to us, take care of your body, and I think, kind of going back to what we said at the beginning of this conversation, you said you saw the legs get a little tired, you saw them get a little slow, and I think that comes with taking care of your body. And so I think, I'm going to kind of let you have that tangent, but in the same sense, it's like on my end of the spectrum, I think everybody needs to take a sense of ownership when it comes to being a student athlete. This is your job. If you don't produce, there's some issues, and that's just the reality of what it is. And so, kind of what did Marshawn Lynch said, you got to take care of your chickens, you got to take care, of what's yours.
Exactly.
And obviously he was talking a different term, but in the same sense, it's like, you got to take care of your body. You got to put yourself in a position. You got to, make those sacrifices, because those sacrifices that you made in high school are the reason why you're here playing right now. There's very, very few athletes that were just gifted enough to do whatever the heck that they wanted and still were able to thrive on all levels. It's a commitment, it's a passion, and I have stories upon stories, and we're going to get into that later on, and as we kind of continue this journey of learning about some of my experiences, stories as an athlete in general, that I've been put in positions where I'm like, okay, I'm inspired by that. How can I be better? What can I take care of myself? And it could be as simple as, hey, put down that juice and go get a glass of water. Baby steps. People neglect the progress of baby steps, and I think those baby steps are going to be important. Taking care of their health, getting in the gym a little bit, going on a couple walks, taking those priorities outside of what's expected of you, as far as practice and the food do and where or however they get their meals. I think because of those, I think that's what I really would like to see next year. I'm just passionate about athletic performance. Wins, they're gonna come. I think they're gonna come. But I'd love to see these young men turn into some ballers, some monsters on there. Some athletic freaks. Because it can happen to anybody. And I've seen it time and time again. People commit themselves to the weight room and their dietary habits, and it makes a world of a difference. And I can say that last year, I made a 360 of a lifestyle change, and that I'm still implementing to this day. And it's put me in a position to feel the best that I've ever felt. I'm actually more athletic now than I was during my playing days.
Let's suit you up, man. Let's suit you up.
Suit me up. Oh, goodness gracious, dude. So it's just one of those things, man. It's just like take care of yourself. And I hope that anybody that listens, that if you guys ever have any questions or want any tips and tricks, reach out to us. Comment on the podcast. Let us help you. Even if it's as simple as, hey, man, what kind of diet are you on? What should I be eating? I'd love to be able to help out. And obviously I'm not professional, so don't take me to court. But at the same time, man, it's like, I'd love to share some tips and tricks if there's somebody out there that's struggling with that. And if I can help them out, I'm going to help them out.
Well, and it'd be interesting, Angel, to see, with COVID and how they were kind of, I don't want to say locked down, but they pretty much were locked down in an area where they're not getting access to people. How are they getting their meals? Are they ordering stuff? Are they getting it sent to them? Yeah. What type of meals are they getting? Because this year, like you probably know all as well, I do too. What you put in your body is what you're going to get out. If you're putting crap in your body, you're going to feel like crap. And this is not to
say, I just want to be clear for listeners, this is not to say that, that they was practicing these bad habits. I'm simply just saying that, like, I'd love to continue to see that physical growth. I think with that, like you said, sometimes we're in positions where we just needed a couple more pounds on us. If we had those extra pounds, it might have made that big difference. And it goes a long way. I think just thinking again back from my athletic performance, those couple of pounds made a huge difference in my performance. And I'd love to see it like that. I know they're surrounded by top tier coaches and the nutrition staff and everything in between and athletic trainers, but I think really kind of taking that to heart and realizing, okay, let me get my weight up a little bit. Let me improve on the areas of weakness and kind of putting, a pen to paper and writing down those kind of goals that they want to accomplish, visualizing them, I think it'll be something good. And I think you brought about a good point right now too. A lot of these guys just been sitting at home, sitting in the hotel, sitting at home. Can you just imagine from, what's that doing to the mental health?
Oh yeah. Well, and as a high schooler, Angel, did you know how to eat? Like when I was in high school, like you weight train, you eat whatever you want, but a lot of these guys are, we have 4 freshmen, 3 sophomores. We have a really young team. They probably are new to that. They're probably just getting to that area. Yeah.
I'm actually quite a bit of a fan of, especially nowadays, since I'm trying to lose a couple lbs right now, just of, kind of physique training and strongman training and those different avenues. They're 2 completely different types of realms of strength training, but it's so incredible what they put into their body. It's a lot of good stuff, but it's a lot of stuff, and it's like I'm barely at a point, even I'm still learning to this day, and I was surrounded by, Matt Nicholson, Sean, the Demings, those guys were just instrumental and really just give at least building a foundation. So one thing that I implore everybody to do, just talk to your coach about some of the dietary habits. Go outside, get some sunshine. Vitamin D is great for you. And so I'm just kind of thinking along the lines of, like you said, going back to it, it's been such a crazy year. I can only imagine what those players were kind of experiencing on a day-to-day basis if I was locked up in my room and I wasn't allowed to, kind of go out, because it demanded that sacrifice in order to play the game that I love. But I can only imagine just sitting there and be like, man, I think I'm a little bit tired of playing some Call of Duty. I think I want to go outside for a little bit. So I don't know, man. I'm excited. Like I said, I think growth is going to happen inevitably, but I'd love to see those little changes. I think it's going to go a long way for their development as not only players, but just as men.
Well, and one thing that, that I saw, just some of the problems that we had was the pace of play, man. I know Coach Shakir is a defense-oriented guy. If you're not playing defense, you're not going to be on the court. And I love that. I love hard-nosed defense. But just because you're a hard-nosed and you take pride in your hard-nosed defense doesn't mean that your offense should be stagnant. And a lot of our guys, and I saw this in multiple games, where our best shooters had an open shot and they like second guessed themselves to take it. They almost did I can't shoot it. And I'm just wondering, did the coaching staff need to kind of look at themselves too and say, and we have great coaches. I'm not saying that, don't get on me about that, but they're great coaches, and Coach Shakir is awesome, and he is a winner. But to see all these other teams where their offense is spread out, it's fluid. Our offense was probably one of the slowest paced offenses in the Big Sky, if not pretty close. And just the confidence level in, we have a lot of guys that are great shooters that they are second guessing themselves. And so I'm just kind of wondering, what can we do to kind of change that pace? And do the coaches see that? Because it's very evident when you're watching a game, the pace of it. One of my favorite teams is Michigan State, and they are hard-nosed defense, but they get out and run. They get out and run after they rebound the ball. They are pushing it, and you can still have your half-court sets and everything like that. But if you're pushing the ball, that could be an easy layup. That could be an outside three, a wide open one. I just think the offense, what we're doing on offense, needs to be kind of revamped and looked at a little bit.
You know what? And I'm kind of, I think I'm gonna play a little bit devil's advocate on that. I think I'm gonna go the opposite direction. I don't think they changed a dang thing. Okay. I think simply because they're so grand. I mean, just walking. I've had the awesome experience of going from class to practice and kind of being able to walk through the arena and kind of see them at practice, even if it was a 5-second split. But man, let me tell you, man, they go hard. They go hard. They're always working, and it's just, I think it's really, they've always had the highest level of standard and expectation, and they coach hard. They sacrifice a lot, and they put a lot of their own time into the craft. And like where you're talking about, that confidence, Yeah, I think it's just something that needs to be built from the player's perspective. You know, they got to be willing to take that shot. They got to be able to have that conversation like Michael Jordan's had before. You know, I've missed, 1,500 shots. I've been trusted to make the game-winning, point X amount of times, and I've failed. And I think because of those instances, the coaching is already set in place. Those expectations are set in place. That trust to say, hey, man, take that shot. It's in place. I think it just comes from the player to say, hey, you know what? I'm ready to take that shot. Win or lose, I'm going to take it. And then you like just thinking about previous years, I've known some players that they just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go for it all. I go for it all. I go for nothing. And you see them come out on top time and time again. And I think that's the beautiful part about the game, man. I think kind of seeing it's not only that we get to see some awesome basketball, but we get to see these guys grow. We get to see these guys develop. And I think that's the beauty of this sport in general. Like you see that guy that may have been a little bit timid, that first year, but you see him that second, third, fourth year, man, just absolutely go crazy out the park. And I think that's so that's why I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I think that coaching, that demand and expectations are already set in place. I think it's one of those things is like, okay, we're going to continue to coach hard because these lessons are going to be learned on the court from the player's perspective.
Well, and I'm not saying that the players aren't trying hard and just let everyone know that's not what I'm saying. Yeah. That they work extremely hard.
It's just continuing development, man. That's all it is. I mean, I there's nothing wrong in saying, hey, you know what? There's room for improvement. Even at the end of my senior season, I know I wasn't, where I expected or I wanted to be. There was always something to chase. That was kind of the mantra that went on with the offensive line. It was like, hey, this was great. We killed it. We perfected this. But there's more.
So let's say, and I'm going to be devil's advocate too.
Yeah.
Let's say, again, we get a little bit better next year, and Eastern Washington still as a roadblock for us. Do you think then we should start looking at what we need to do differently with our offense? Our defense is going to be there no matter what. Our defense is going to be there, and you can win off of defense. But when you have a team that is so good and has so many threats at offense, it is hard to guard. That Eastern Washington team, there is nobody that you can lay off and kind of play inside and kind of straddle one and kind of play off more on one guy. Because you're going to get burned. And so, does that mean next year, if that happens again, that's when we start worrying about some of the offensive stuff?
Yeah, well, it's based on a week-to-week basis. I think they do. I think just athletics in general do an awesome job of saying, hey, you know what? The focus of this week is, Portland State. The focus of this week is Idaho, and then they move on to the next week. Obviously, in the back of the head, I think they're going to be thinking about Eastern Washington the whole year. But I think because of that, like you said, that's not. And when I was saying it early, that's not to say that they don't, kind of game plan a little bit around depending on who they're going to play. They got to kind of expose their weaknesses, just like anything. It's chess. It's chess when it comes to these types of games, and just basketball and football games in general. And so they're obviously going to come up with a game plan. There's obviously, strength and weaknesses that, hey, we can do a little better here. And I think they apply, kind of accordingly. But I kind of meant it more in the sense of like, hey, for the most part, I think they have a game plan. And I think sticking to the foundational game plan that they have year in and year in has proven why they're so, successful. And then that comes in that consistency, you know. Like you said, I think there's certain things to work on. Obviously, the point of the game is to score, more points than other teams, and defend more points than the other team. And I think they're going to take that into consideration. But I think as far as, hey, you know what, we're here to develop men. I think that's going to be the number one priority, and kind of take it on a player by player basis. Like I said, I've walked a little bit, just kind of by them while they're practicing, and every guy's working on their craft. The big men we're working, kind of those inside shots. The shiftier guys were outside learning how to, do X, Y, Z. Just continue to work on their craft and kind of work on their strength and kind of work on their weaknesses at the same time as well. And so it's just one of those things. But I think they're going to put themselves in a position to succeed when that time comes.
Well, and it would be interesting to see, with this year has just been weird, how and we don't know, and we probably will never know, you know, because a lot of the team had COVID or had COVID sometime during the year.
Exactly.
What I had heard is a lot of the team had it earlier on in the year during the summer months. And so that's pivotal time where you're working on your craft, where you're getting one-on-one, you know, maybe attention with a coach, working on your craft, maybe working on a certain aspect of your game. That could have been a huge part of not having that time with just the way that this year was. So
exactly, man. It just
so hey, let's you know, sorry, did you have something else? Sorry.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead. What were you saying, Seb?
I was just going to go into the recruiting, or do you have one last thought?
Oh no, actually, when it comes to recruiting, yeah, I don't necessarily know what's happening too much in the recruiting world right now. I know that we have a couple commits right now, don't we?
Yes. So right now we have a 6'3" point guard out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Jonathan Braggs. Really cool guy. I got to interview him. A little plug here. That interview will be happening. That'll be coming out probably on Monday. And so really cool guy. And I feel he's going to really fit into Montana. He loves defense.
Yep.
He's an athlete. He really takes care of his body from what he's saying. And he played at Bishop Gorman High School in, I believe, Nevada, where it's not a high school. It's pretty much it's a college campus that they're traveling all over the place. So
that's top tier competition right there. Yeah,
exactly. Some other recruits that they have offers out to, Kyle Freelo for 6'6" power forward out of Northridge, California.
Yep.
Cameron Robinson, 6'8" power forward out of Portland, Oregon. And Justice, I think it's Justice. It has a U in it. Jackson, a 6'1" guard out of Goodyear, Arizona. And then one more guy, Glenn Taylor Jr., 6'6" guy, that guard, a wing guy, kind of combo guard out of Las Vegas, Nevada as well. Those guys are still on the radar. It'll be interesting to see, you know, I believe we've got three spots. Actually two open spots out there right now, because of Michael Stedman leaving and Cameron Satterwhite leaving. So we have two open spots that we could fill. It'll be interesting to see, do we get one of these recruits, or do we go to the transfer portal and get a guy out of that way? So it'll be, let's say we get two of these guys. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Just based off what we need. You're not going to really get a big guy. You know, 6'8" is the biggest guy that they've got offered, and he's more of a power forward. So, you know, it kind of, my thought process is that I feel they'll probably go to the transfer portal and try to get a big that way, and they might add another guy from this list that they've already offered.
I think obviously I like to say this saying, like, I don't know nothing about nothing, but if I was a coach, I think that would kind of be the smarter way to go. I think that experience is kind of needed right now. And I think it'll be good for some of those younger guys to be around, you know, a veteran guy like that. So who really knows when it comes down to it? You know, they're the experts, they're the professionals, you know, when it comes to this type of stuff. All I can do is give my opinion and say, hey, you know what, that's what if I was a coach, I'd probably put myself in that shoe and say, hey, you know what, that's probably the smart move to make.
Well, and the only thing that worries me is, you know, with the transfer portal, you know, Idaho, I think they've lost 7 guys. Montana State, I think, will have lost 2. So do we lose any guys? I know we've already lost 3 guys in the middle of the year.
I don't think we do.
I don't think we do either. I think we've kind of, not to say like they're bad apples, but we've kind of separated not the bad apples, but the people that don't want to be here or are looking for and this is probably the better way to say it, they're looking for a better opportunity for their skill set. And I think you've said that a while back in one of our first episodes, is it might not be a player coach thing. It might just be, hey, this does not work for my skill set.
Exactly.
I need to look out. I need to look out for me. And as a player, if you're not being, used with your best skill set, of course you got to look out for you.
Yeah.
And so who knows? I don't think they're going to lose anybody. I think they've got a core group there that are ready to go. I think they're just going to add a couple people. So.
Yep, exactly. I think so too. I'm kind of curious, kind of for the listeners out there, I think it'd be a good idea to kind of get their perspective on who do you think is going to take, March Madness. So leave a comment, man. Leave a comment. Let us know what you guys think. We love to hear the different perspectives. Down the road, we'll make a little episode after it's all said and done, kind of recapping just really quickly and really vaguely to how the tournament kind of went and who kind of came out on top.
Yeah, it would be really cool. A lot of the groups, I know my family does a pool, and we have a trophy as well. So
you get a trophy?
We have a trophy. It's a makeshift trophy that we have, but it would be a cool maybe next year to set up a Fight on Montana bracket challenge.
As a student, as an ex-student athlete, I was never able to kind of bet and put my name those, so I'm just letting you know, I found out a place where, I'm doing nothing illegal. So I'm taking full advantage of it, man. Put me in all the pools, invite me.
Nice. Well, hey, listeners, I want to go through the comments there. We have had some comments here that I wanted to go over. What Micah Kemper says, and I think this is Michael Kemper as well, on there. I know we don't have the locker room view, but did you see a clear leader on the floor this year? What do you think, Angel? Did you see a clear leader?
You know what? I'd like to say, kind of just dumbing it back a little bit. I think there's a lot of leadership potential in a lot of these guys. Obviously, Mac Anderson, who's someone who's been around a little more than some of the other guys. And so I'd like to kind of assume that he's going to be a leader regardless of what the kind of the stat sheet says. I think he had 9 points during the East Washington game. I think Cameron Parker came away with like 15, I think.
Yep.
So obviously I think he has the potential to really kind of influence a lot of those younger guys. And I think there's a handful of others as well. What about you, Adam? What do you think?
I kind of agree with you, with being a leader in – some of the best leaders aren't always the ones that are yelling at people. They lead by example. And so just because you're not seeing somebody yelling at somebody for not doing something right, there might be a guy out there that's leading by example by the way he's playing. Do we have a guy that's, hey, I'm the leader, this is my time? Well, no, we did not have a Sade Pridgett where he's the guy, where he's, taking a guy under his wing and saying, this is how we do it. But that's also something that we didn't have this year as well, is you didn't have those older players saying, hey, this is how we do Montana basketball.
Exactly.
Because we had sophomores and freshmen and one junior and a senior that hasn't been here. And so I think there's some true leadership potential. And I always like to see Tom Izzo always says he'd rather have a player's coach team rather than a coach's team. And so I think DeCure probably would echo that as well. And I think that he's kind of developing that. I think, looking at Cameron Parker, Robbie Beasley, Brandon Whitney, DJ, I think he's one of those that I kind of look at as the leader. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be on the floor. And you can only do so much when you're not on the floor. You can be the guy on the sideline, but it's hard to be a leader when you're on the sideline. You can be the greatest teammate and stuff, but I'm not one of those guys where you can be a leader and you're, a backup and you're, not playing anything. So I agree with you, man. I think there's some leadership potential. It's got to be developed. So
exactly.
Jack Marshall, we already answered that one. Thank you, Jamie, for loving it. Thank you. Also, fans out there, listeners out there, we want you to get a hold of us. We want this to be interactive. We want to hear from you. Our ways of getting a hold of us, we can get us on our Twitter at Fight On Montana, also our Instagram page at Fight On Montana. We do have a Facebook page as well at Fight On Montana. I know I have a Twitter at Adam, the real Adam Healy. I kind of go through our podcast one, and I know Angel does too. So if you have questions, if you'd like to see something maybe that you're not seeing from us, we're here for you guys. Hopefully, we can give you what you want, and we can produce some content for Griz Nation. Yep. And we want to keep on developing this into something that the fans can be proud of and say, hey, did you listen to what Angel and Adam said? Or, did you check out the podcast this week? Exactly. And I think that it'll really grow once people start talking about it. It's growing fast. It's only been, a year, Angel. And it started with one listen, and, we're getting great feedback. And, this is our second true episode with you, and we've gotten great feedback as well. And so I only see some great things. What about you?
I'm kind of along the same, bro. It's just an awesome opportunity, man. It's really humbling. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm just really excited for the opportunity, like I had mentioned. And I think it's one of those things. It's like this is a learning experience for us, and I hope those listeners out there understand that, hey, we don't. This is not our job. We do it because we're passionate about it, because we want to kind of bridge that gap between the sports world and the community. And I think if people understand that, I think it's important to know, hey man, reach out to us, talk to us, tell us what you're thinking, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, what are you scared of, what are you excited about, those different perspectives. We love to have down the road to get people from the community on the show too, to kind of get to a point where give their their opinion, even if it's for a couple of minutes at a time. I think it's the opportunity is really there in a lot of ways, and I think if people understand and they want to grow with us and be a part of this community, welcome. Please, walk with us, follow us on all, social media platforms, and just get ready for this wild ride, man. We're going to take, every episode, put a lot of heart into it and a lot of hard work into it. And so it's just one of those things. Every listener, every viewer, we're extremely grateful for. And so don't be afraid to reach out. And if we can help out in any way outside of this podcast too, that we're there for you guys as much as we can be.
Well, and one quick side note, Angel, too. Did you hear that they're allowing, I believe it's like 5,000
Adam, let me tell you right now, I don't know how the hell I'm going to get there, but I'm going to be one of those 5,000 people. I'm just telling you that. So if anybody got the hookup, because I don't got no more hookups, just let me know,
right?
Yeah.
I wonder how much the tickets are going to be, because that would be kind of pricey.
I think they're going to be normal price, $30, I think. 30, 40.
Oh, really?
I think normal. I would assume so. I don't think
I would hope so.
I hope so too. But if anybody got the hookup, then give me under $30.
Exactly. I would love to come up for a game. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Man, on me or something.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's happening. We wanted to kind of throw out to you guys as well. Next week we'll be working on a deep dive into kind of different position groups, kind of getting ready for the spring games. I always want to say exhibition, but they're not. Exhibitions are actually games.
Baby.
They're games.
All right, let's go.
Exactly. So we're going to go into those subgroups and those position groups. The first one that we're going to be doing is the O-line and the tight ends. So if you guys have questions about the O-line, about the tight ends, you have some concerns, you have something to tell us about that, let us know. You can DM us on Twitter, on Instagram. Let us know. We'll be working on that next week. So can't wait. And always and always.
Yep.
Fight on, right?
Yeah, go Griz.
All right, man.